Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another SolarWinds Briefing for 2020. Thanks very much indeed for joining us today. We do appreciate your time. My name is John O'Callaghan. I look after international product marketing. I'm based in our international headquarters in Cork in Ireland. And delighted today to be joined by Napoleon Bonaparte himself, Mr. Sasha Gize, and also Sir Nigel Douglas, the famous nephew of Michael Douglas. Guys, pleasure to meet you again.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Good stuff. For everybody on the call, if you've got any questions at all, please feel free to send them through the Q&A or the chat box, and we will do our best to answer those through the course of the event. If you've got any feedback on our products, if you're currently using SolarWinds technology, jump on the TWAC community, where you can join over 150,000 of your peers and partners and SolarWinds experts, and you can ask questions, get answers. You can also put in feature requests, and also on the product pages, we have what we're working on pages, so you can get a little bit of an insight in terms of what we're thinking going forward as well. And if you would like to get a one-to-one demonstration of any of the technologies we discussed today or any other SolarWinds technology, just let us know and we will set that up at a time suitable for yourself. So today's session is a part of the What's New series, and today we're going to talk about what's new in application performance management. So SolarWinds recently had a major release of the 2020.2 release, and some of you may be aware that we've changed the release numbering or serialization, whatever people call it. We used to have lots of different product numbers and versions, and we've consolidated everything down now to a similar format of the year and the quarter. So 2020 obviously is the year, .2 is the quarter. So the reason we did this was to help customers around the world. Once you've upgraded to these versions, going forward, you'll have a very, very good instant understanding of the age of the software and if there's any updated or upgrades that you need to do to get it to new versions. So that was the reasoning behind it. Hopefully, it'll make it a lot simpler for software management and asset management and so on. And of course, our mantra is simplify IT operations management with SolarWinds, and we're going to do that through our comprehensive framework or portfolio of offerings for IT operations management. As you can see here, the offering is made up of 6 key pillars. On the top there, you have service management. And then today we're going to talk about application performance management, which is the fastest growing market for monitoring and management. Applications obviously being really, really crucial to every business out there. And we've seen a lot of change in applications as well over the last number of years. We were traditionally used to the packaged applications that you buy, you install, you get them up and running. And then, of course, we had people who had built in-house custom applications based on traditional software development cycles, maybe 18 months, 2-year cycles, and then there's stress testing and end user testing, and then there's release dates and so on. More recently, then we've seen the advent of the SaaS applications, and a lot of people using SaaS applications now to offload having to worry about the application and having to worry about the infrastructure underlying that. And more recently, we've seen the advent of the DevOps and Agile development and the custom apps, where people are typically trying to drive applications to mobile platforms to get into new markets, drive more business in different locations, get to market faster, bring new features faster out, etc. So lots of different kind of applications out there, and our goal is to try and help you simplify the monitoring and management of all those different types of applications, regardless of whether it is set on-premise or in the cloud. Of course, straight underneath that, we have database performance management, and many applications are going to rely on databases for performance as well. The traditional read, write, and I/O and wait times and SQL queries and NoSQL queries and all this kind of good stuff. Applications are going to rely on database for performance at the end of the day. So we've got some new things going on there in that market as well. So again, the traditional relational databases, which are SQL based, like Oracle, Microsoft SQL, DB2, Sybase, which is now SAP ASE, and others, Postgres, SQL as well. And then, of course, we have the advent of the new type of databases, such as MongoDB, Redis. These are NoSQL databases and some open source components in there as well. So again, we want to cover all of those most common databases that organizations are using and deploying, again, either on-premise or in the cloud. Underneath that, we have infrastructure. So all applications and all databases are also going to rely on underlying CPU, memory, computers, virtual machines, whether they're on-premise or in the cloud and in infrastructure as a service. These all have to be working in harmony as well. And then, of course, the glue that puts everything together, the network, connecting to applications, of course, more frequently now from remote locations as well, given the current situations, but also kind of more complex networks in relation to service providers, SaaS applications, cloud, etc. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the IT security pillar, which is in the vertical sense because that permeates across all of these different layers within IT. So our user base, it's kind of expanded fairly rapidly over the last number of years. Traditionally, SolarWinds had very close relationships with the administrators, so network admins, application owners, admins, DBAs, system admins, storage admins, you name it, IT security pros, and so on, service desk operators. And that would typically be where we would identify an issue in the customer, or the customer identifies an issue, and we will provide a product to solve that problem. More and more, of course, people are looking at trying to get to the single pane of glass platform for IT operations management. And then that decision making typically will go up to IT management, IT director level, and so on. And then if we look at IT operations management as a strategic initiative within organizations and putting everything together, including all the service management, the security, and all the monitoring and management, then really we're getting up to kind of CIO, CTO, heads of IT leaders level as well. And of course, we also monitor both on-premise and cloud environments, be that applications or infrastructure or networks, and we can also deploy on those environments. The ITOM framework of the application performance management is a pillar and a very important one. So with that, let's get into the details of some of the new things we have released. So Sasha, do you want to take us through this slide here, some of the kind of key new elements of SAM and vMan there?
All right, sure. I could probably show a few of those details in a few minutes, but on a basic level in Server and Application Monitor, two major things. We added API polling in 2019 so late 2019. And it is an amazing feature. It was so well received by the customer base that we added some additional resources to it to make it easier to use, and also a few templates. I show this later. Also, scalability improved. The overall scalability of the Orion platform improved significantly in pretty much all modules, and Server and Application Monitor is one of the guys. 40,000 elements per polling engine, up from, I think, 10, 12,000 before, so big time. And for an instance, overall, I think we're close to hitting 600,000 elements, which is a lot. There's not that many companies in that size. vMan, similar story. Last year, we started adding Nutanix support as the third infrastructure provider next to Hyper-V and VMware. And again, we added a few bits and pieces over there. Nutanix devices will now show in the maps. And we actually, last month, I think, or 2 weeks ago, we received an official Nutanix badge. So we are now officially supported by Nutanix. And some other bits and pieces around storage. So in the Orion platform, we added ways to manipulate storage thresholds, which was another customer request, and that is now in Virtualization Manager too. And particularly for my friends in France, so Napoleon's friends and the Germans, we had a minor problem with non-English Hyper-V hosts, and some values didn't show up correctly. That is fixed now. There's international Hyper-V host support. That's it.
Super stuff. And of course, I was being a little bit sneaky there because SAM obviously is within our application performance management. vMan actually sits in infrastructure, but because it's closely linked, I said I wanted to get that in there. And of course, there's a couple of other products in there like Web Performance Monitor and Pingdom, where we've provided some integration. So Nigel, do you want to give us a quick explanation of what we've done there?
Yeah, the most recent addition we've made on the Pingdom side, with those who are familiar with website performance monitoring on the Orion platform, is we've taken our existing technology in the form of Flight Recorder and adding this to our transaction checks in Pingdom. So in Pingdom, where we previously did a transaction check and we identified CSS selector IDs on the page, now we can go a little step further and ignore the script type approach and go for the point and click approach that we already have in the existing technology, and now it exists as well in Pingdom. So that's our flight recorder integration.
Super stuff. So with that, let's get straight into the demos. I'm going to pass the ball first of all to Nigel, because we're going to start actually with another product called AppOptics. And AppOptics is our SaaS platform for application performance management. And then after that, Sash is going to bring us through Server and Application Monitor as well. So Nigel, you have control there, and you're up and running there.
Perfect. So for those who have already seen AppOptics before or are looking for an update, what's nice about AppOptics and how it stands out a little bit different from what we have on the Orion platform is you don't have to wait on these scheduled updates. We have a software as a service platform, so you kind of have the ability to see us kind of casually updating, and you'll see updates coming through regularly. One of the most recent additions now is that when we're monitoring our microservices within AppOptics, we can look at the stack in regards to how the different services talk to one another. So similar to the Orion platform, when you have the dependency mapping, we now have this in AppOptics. So we're looking at, let's say, we have a cluster of different microservices, and these microservices, well, first of all, we want to see if they talk to external services or databases, but we also want to see within our own environment how they rely on one another. So we can look at this as kind of a parent-child relationship, where we see if we looked at this as a kind of a front-end website, and we have a booking service, a web tier, an authentication service, and search service, that there are multiple different databases that you were touching on earlier, like MongoDB and Redis, and being able to see that, say, one MongoDB instance could be used for both the search service and a booking service. So certainly we're trying to keep in a similar feel that you'd see in other APM solutions in regards to complex dependency mapping. But the major difference between AppOptics and other application monitoring tools is it's a fully fledged APM. So when we're talking about APM, we're thinking more the likes of instrumentation, custom metric polling from distributed applications. So to achieve that, when we're adding a service, we would instrument a language framework associated with the application. Again, this could be a bespoke application we're developing in our organization. So what we're focused on, whether it's Node.js, PHP, Java, .NET, our focus is running our library to make the changes to the libraries and drivers associated with the language framework. So when that application, regardless of what it is, makes a downstream HTTP web call, we should collect that in the form of a trace. So for this example, I'll take a very easy one. We'll pick .NET Framework. And in the case of .NET, it's a proprietary Microsoft technology, so we see here for Windows only. And we'll give it a service name of test. So collecting the data is a fairly painless process. What we're doing is we run this executable on the server where the application is located, and we're authenticating our service token, our API token, with the service name being test in this case. Now, this test application could be the Orion platform. It's an example of an application that runs .NET Framework. It has an IIS web server and a Microsoft SQL backend. So we would see essentially all of the full stack visibility there from client side, server side, down to database from that collected call. So once we've run the agent with authenticator, token, and service name for connection to AppOptics, we just need to restart the application pool and wait for it to make those natural HTTP web calls. Once instrumented, we'll see our service show up in the services view. And we were talking about earlier, the map view is really nice to see those services now, they talk to one another. But for here already, we can see that same authentication service, the booking, the API, and we can see the response time, essentially the latency on our application. We see the requests. Is there more or less traffic coming from our end users to the application? And then the error rate. Is there any exceptional data associated with that? Going into the booking service, because I can see there is a spike in activity, I can go in. We take a somewhat of an industry-first approach in the sense of we're trying to simplify APM monitoring. We're not just saying, here's a bunch of raw data, figure it out from there. I mean, having those key performance indicators is perfect. We can troubleshoot it. But this layout, this overview page is already telling us on a warning level, the following host is seeing an unusually high amount of volume compared to another host. That's telling us go to the host details. It's also saying the service is spending most of its time making calls to the database, of which we should focus on the database activity. simply clicking on the database performance will filter down for that service all of the DB tables, and it'll show you not just the total time spent on those tables, but also the frequency. How often is the activity, and is this a current or regular trend? Without this kind of deeper insight provided by the product itself, I would have to go into the details view, kind of hover over these nicely, and these are all pre-populated graphs, and it would tell me from the application and database view, okay, look, a lot of time spent on the application code, and significant amounts on the database as well. Historically, it's kind of 50-50. What's happened here that's different? So I can splice and figure out what is happening in that date period, or I can look at longer historical periods. I could look at the last 6 hours just as a point of reference and to identify that spike and where it came from. But going back to that overview, deciding to go with this. Yep.
No, just a point there, just a quick difference between SAM and AppOptics as well. So in SAM, we're kind of monitoring the services and the kind of processes that are keeping an application alive, right? Whereas here, we're actually digging into the code as well, yeah?
Absolutely. So what we're trying to see here is rather than monitoring a database on its own and monitoring a web server on its own, or even a client application, being able to say from a web call that it's the associated call, we can see that how much time was taken up in the individual activities. Because it's easy to say the application's slow, let's blame the database team, or let's blame the developer. It's not always that simple. There might be an unusual spike in activity that, even though if based on historical trends, it might have been consistently a database issue, but right now it might not be. And this is where an APM solution really addresses those bottlenecks, those hard to troubleshoot problems. So I go into my traced requests. So these are those individual HTTP web activities. I can see where the anomaly is, this jump in the heat map. So if I drill over, let's say, those two specific traces, I can see those take 18 seconds to run, whereas the average call is like a second long. So this is, of course, it's an anomaly. It's something unusual. It's a good call. It was a 200 HTTP web call. But in that trace activity, I want to see what happened that was different. 98% of the time was spent in local code, and only 2% was on database calls, whereas historically it was telling us kind of half the activity was on the database. So what happened in the local code? And this is where John pointed out, it could be an issue with code profiling, of which now we didn't do it in this scenario. You can enable code profiling to better understand how much time is spent in specific functions or classes in the code. But in this scenario, like you can see here from the full stack, I can see what was involved in that web call. Well, we instrumented a Ruby on Rails application, so you can see the rack framework for the entirety of the call. But it doesn't just stop at that. We can see that it uses services like Faraday. It makes an external web call to another booking service, which is a Java-based application. We can see Spring Framework all the way down to a database activity in Mongo. And we can even see the queries that were executed off that. Now, again, if you wanted to look at SolarWinds and how we can address all of the conceivable problems, we could go further to take those queries, put it into another software service product called BPM to better understand how could we optimize those queries. But APM on its own, or AppOptics, will show us how much time is spent up in the application, external web calls versus the database, and then where is our opportunity for optimization? Is this a consistent problem, or is this an anomaly? Is it something standing out on its own? And AppOptics doesn't really end there. That's the NPM piece, and some people use it as infrastructure monitoring. They would add an agent into a Windows or Linux-based operating system, or even on a Kubernetes pod, to better understand what is the host doing, and if there's any applications or frameworks that reside on that host, then we can monitor those plugins via the host agent. So AppOptics really gives you a full stack visibility into custom applications, into the individual plugins and host monitoring, as well as cloud-hosted platforms like AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Heroku.
And Nigel, who would be the typical users for this product?
It's a brilliant question. So when we think of server application monitor, really anyone could be monitoring applications. You want to know, are they working? Are they good? Are they healthy? Especially on a high-level holistic view across the organization. Whereas AppOptics is very much focused on your DevOps I prefer to use DevOps as a term, not just software developers, because there's a lot of people who work in operations, whether they're support or maintenance or, and then you even have the different stages. There's those who are working in development, but then there's, staging, and then there's production environments. So yeah, DevOps would be the term for better understanding in pre-development, is it working well? And then even post-development, when everyone's using it in the world and it's gone into high production environments, do we still understand how well the application is performing? So it's definitely the DevOps customer would be looking at this.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Perfect. And I guess on that note, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, let me take the ball and run with it, as they say, and move it over to Sasha. So Sasha, I'm converting you to lead presenter as we speak, so you have control.
Perfect. Just a second. Too many windows on my machine. There we go. So this is the Orion platform, and a quick tour through Server and Application Monitor. So the little and at the same time big brother of AppOptics. Server and Application Monitor, as the name suggests, is a tool to keep control of servers and applications. And oops, here we go. So the latest news is basically API polling, but let me quickly explain what it does besides this. And a nice example is usually App Insights for SQL. So the Server and Application Monitor provides template-based application monitoring. And as Nigel mentioned already, it's the tool for the system administrator, basically for anyone, but in particular for the system administrator, who is like a jack of all trades. So someone who has a good understanding of pretty much everything in IT, but might not be an expert in such of a complex topic like a SQL database. So I'm opening one of the SQL servers here, and everything we see in a second here is like, I don't know, 4 or 5 mouse clicks. So it's pretty much an out-of-the-box template that has been assigned to a machine, and everything else is coming from this template. There's no manual interaction necessary. So we see all the actual databases running in the database instance here. If we click and drill down into a database, we see index fragmentation, growth of the transaction log, and a few other things. As long as we stay here on this level, the instance information is more general. And as usual, when we talk about a database, loads of this is around memory usage. But let's assume that the system administrator looks at this and maybe has no idea what is a log request, but the SolarWinds system is showing it in red. So we would just click it and it will give us a nice explanation. What is happening there? Why is it happening? And what can I do to fix the situation? Also, another very nice feature is this guy here at the right-hand side. This is an automated dependency system. So we check what other machines are talking to the SQL server and see the dependency of applications with each other. So for example, my usual example isn't here right now, but what we see in a production system is quite frequently communication between the SQL server and the domain controller, obviously for authentication lookups. So we would identify the connectivity between those two guys, and we'll show both ends and the communication in between. Because I think Nigel said something similar. Quite often you might consider that the database is the problem. Actually, I'm like a network engineer. In my world, the database is always the problem, but the database could be fine in an example, and the problem is somewhere with the domain controller. So we would show it over here in this chart. Here at the right-hand side is another nice feature, which is called the app stack or environment, and it will show us everything that's relevant to whatever we look at right now. And right now, we look at an application. So that is my Active Directory machine here. And there's a few other applications. There's a database somewhere in the background. Sorry, MySQL. And the servers, I don't virtualize this database. So it's a physical machine. There's some volumes here, and it goes all the way down to the storage array. So we would usually check if there's anything red. There's a lot red right now, but I don't want to drill into a specific use case just right now. Instead, let me go to the machine. This one here maybe. And I hope I find a good example to show you the API polling. I'm just a guest. I'm not an administrator, so I'm a little bit limited here. But let's see how far I can walk you through this. Right now, we look at the machine. It's a Windows server, and here's API poller. There's two ways. We could create our own, or we use a template. And I'm going for using a template. There's like 20 different templates or so. And this is basically customer requests, right? So we have Jira. We have really new and shiny Azure templates, and we can monitor our own stuff. We have license checks for SolarWinds. We have about fixed integration, whatever, right? So whatever you're interested in, you pick it, and the next step, you assign an account or any form of authorization, and finally assign it to a machine. I can't do this here. That's where my demo system stops. If we would deal with something completely new, we won't use the assign feature. We use the create feature. And you could basically play along HTTP GET POST, and whatever API you're using, it will respond something. Okay, so we send a request here, the response will be here, and then we can decide what's important to us, what would we like to monitor. And we pick it here, and it will show up somewhere here at the right-hand side, and multiple steps would be here. Basically, you can use this feature to talk to any other system out there that's providing an API. And we just saw a little bit of the environment, the app stack. That is another new feature since the last update. API pollers are part of the app stack. So if I click somewhere, it will gray out what is no longer important. You get the idea, I guess. Okay, let's quickly detour to Virtualization Manager just for a moment. I think we had it in the slide earlier, but just that you see it. For many, many years, this tool only supported VMware and Hyper-V, which was kind of fine because the two of them, that's like 90+% of the market share. We had a few requests for KVM, we had a few requests for Citrix, but never enough requests to so that we built support for this. Nutanix is a little bit different. Nutanix is growing big time. So Nutanix support is there since half a year, a bit over half a year, and it's fully supported within the product from top down. So machines running over there down to the storage layer, which is obviously Nutanix too. I think that's pretty much it. So just a few more seconds here. The web performance monitor. Nigel mentioned it. There's a new recorder. So the web performance monitor is basically, it's based on three elements. We have a recorder, we have a player, and we have the Orion model, which we look at right now. The recorder is usually something that you would deploy on a laptop, on a workstation, whatever. And it looks a little bit like a browser. Basically, that's what it is. You open a website, you hit record, and whatever you do on the website is being recorded. And you can use the player to play the recording from various locations around the globe or the cloud. And since now, the latest update, in the recorder, I think top right or top left corner, you can choose what to do. Either assign it to a player, a WPM player, or you assign it to Pingdom. And there's an API exchange in the background, so there's 4 or 5 steps required. And you can use the cloud-based Pingdom system to play that recording. So it's a little bit more easier to use in case you're using both. And if you ask why is there 2 different systems, that is a very complicated question, or the answer for that. It has to do with how your infrastructure looks like, how your networks look like, what kind of authorizations you need for your web application. So depending on the use case, one of the two is the better solution. All right, with that,
very good.
Back to John.
Thank you, Sasha. And just going back to Sam for a couple of seconds, obviously it comes with, I think it's over 1,200 templates for applications and infrastructure, but you can also create custom templates and download them from THWAC as well, right?
Yes, it has. I think when you install it for the first time, there's like 250 templates right available, and there's an integration to the community in the product available, so you don't have to go anywhere else. And there's 1,200 something templates which are community driven, and they're there since a long, long time because our community is pretty active. So there's lots of stuff to do, and if you consider that most organizations in the world sitting on the same applications over and over again, you could probably guess that whatever an organization is using is already supported. In case someone is using a custom application, it would be very suspicious if there's a template available already. In that case, there's like a wizard, like a walkthrough how you could create your own templates. Super easy to use.
Super stuff. So thanks, guys. Thanks for bringing us through that. Obviously, very comprehensive APM capabilities across the board, whether it's packaged applications, traditional in-house built applications, or the newer SaaS and the newer custom apps as well. And of course, that forms part, as we said already, of the IT operations management portfolio. SolarWinds has just released a new ITOM brochure. It's available in print format. When we eventually get back to do trade shows, we'll be able to talk through all of this with customers and prospects and partners who come to the stand. But it's also available as a web format, so we can issue that out, and all of the links are live within that. So a little kind of a product guide as well for anybody who wants to delve into the overall capabilities of SolarWinds for IT operations management. So you see the framework on the front page. In the middle, you'll have all the pillars, so application performance, database performance, infrastructure management, network management, IT security, and service management. And then you have all the products associated to those pillars. And then the SaaS products, because it's a mixture of licensed products and SaaS products. The SaaS products have the little gray arrow on the top right. And on the back then, the kind of three ways that organizations typically deal with SolarWinds. We fix a problem. You guys have an issue that needs resolution. We'll identify one of those products to help you fix that quickly, get that done. The next level up then is kind of connecting multiple products together into a single pane of glass platform like Orion. And of course, if you're using all SaaS apps and you're all kind of custom apps, then you would have your App Optics, your Loggly, your Pingdoms, all this type of applications there. And then finally, if you look at ITOM as a strategic initiative within an organization, we can talk around kind of a longer term strategy and how you guys can really simplify your IT operations management. And then what we do is, we can wrap around lots of customer success programs as well. So not only can you simplify your ITOM, you can also take advantage of things like the customer portal, which are customized portals just for you as a customer. So you can see the licenses that you have. You can see any kind of upgrades associated to those. You can also get access to the SolarWinds Success Center, which is over 20,000 technical documents and videos. You also have the opportunity, if you wish, to use SolarWinds Smart Start, which is basically a purchase of a number of hours of engineering support. So if you need support getting one of our solutions installed, getting it configured, doing an initial poll, getting some initial information back, getting value quickly out of the solution, then Smart Start is available. That is also available through our global channel partners, and some of our partners have their own programs around that as well for SolarWinds specifically. So you can, the key thing is to get the immediate value out of the investment that you're making. We also, of course, have the SolarWinds Academy. So as long as you're on maintenance or if you're on a subscription, you have full access for free training in the SolarWinds Academy. And for the technical folk out there, you can also take the SolarWinds Certified Professional exams through that process. And the only thing that people need to pay for is the proctored exams. So we use a third-party independent proctoring service. So there's a small fee applicable to the exams. THWAC, as I said, it's not, you don't need to be a customer to access THWAC. Anybody can log on there. Anybody who's got an interest in technology can jump on there and ask questions and so on in the community. Our SolarWinds support, so the professional support is what you get with your license purchase. The Premier support and the Enterprise support are pay services above your licenses, but it's got enhanced support levels, service level guidelines, upgrade support, and all that kind of good stuff in there as well. And then for our global partner community, of which there are many around the world, we provide them with a partner portal where they can get quick and easy access to the information that they need to help you deploy your IT operations management solutions as well. So with that, SolarWinds, we want to be easy to use. We certainly want to be an organization that provides you an opportunity to scale with us. So if you start small and grow big, we want to help you with that. And of course, doing that on a very affordable method as well. So, these are really kind of values that we hold close to our heart. We also want to provide you with modular approaches and connected approaches. So you can start with one product, you can connect other products to that and build out what you need, when you need it, as you need it. Obviously, we've been extending our capability to have now a full stack visibility across all hybrid IT environments, and then mapping service and security as well to provide that comprehensive ITOM portfolio. So with that, thank you very much indeed for your time today. Just a quick review of any questions there. We'll get to those. And Nigel and Sasha, thank you very much for your time today. We do appreciate it. I know you guys are really, really busy talking to customers every day and helping customers fix their problems and build out ITOM strategy. So it's really appreciated that you can jump on these calls as well.
It's great. Thank you for having us.
Dario.
And of course, in the background there, very quiet, Debbie Lister has been helping us moderate this session and plan it all. So thanks, Debbie, as well. And of course, biggest thanks of all to everybody who joined. We do appreciate it. Lots of webcasts planned as we go forward in time over the next quarter or two. So we look forward to seeing you on future calls as well. So with that, thank you very much indeed. Have a good rest of the day, and we will talk to you very, very soon. Take care and goodbye.